Thanks, Mo. That's loud. Mo, congrats on the conference. It's on the last speaker, I can say that. You did a great job. Let's give it up for Mo. Good job. Even despite 2 fire alarms and a power outage, the show went on, so I'm very impressed. All right, so some of you saw me on the stage earlier today. I'm actually going to follow up on some of the themes that we talked about regarding the blockchain summit and answer or discuss the question of what are the world's biggest challenges that could be approached by blockchain technology. Quick background on myself. I'm a serial tech entrepreneur and now also an angel investor. I have been in the Bitcoin space since 2012, and both as an investor and an operator. I was co-founder and former CEO of BitGo. We raised $14 million with BitGo to build the premier company in Bitcoin security, pioneering technology called multi-sig back in 2013. I'm also a limited partner and advisor to Blockchain Capital, which is one of the major investors in the Bitcoin space and has a portfolio of about 35 companies now in the space. And since I left BitGo about 4 months ago, I've been spending a lot of time looking at what is the future for blockchain technology and how can it influence and impact some of the high growth areas and other areas of tech. My background is in tech in general. I've been the founder of 3 companies, had 5 exits, and I've actually personally invested in 50 companies, either directly or indirectly through funds. So that's the rest of my background. Let's move on to what's interesting here. So to recap the discussion that was had in the panel earlier, we had this opportunity to meet with Richard Branson and several other really incredible people on his private island, Necker Island, which was a great spot. It was very inspirational because Branson really set the tone for the discussion around social impact and looking at global change on a long time horizon. So in this picture here, you've got Branson on the left, you've got Hernando de Soto on the right in the foreground, Michael Casey, Wall Street Journal journalist next to him, Steve Waterhouse on the left next to Branson, Oliver Luckett to the left of Branson, digital media executive. I'll mention some of his work. Behind there is a guy who runs Alibaba's venture arm. So really diverse group of people to come and talk about the theme of blockchain technology, not Bitcoin the currency, and what this worldwide ledger could do for future applications. One of my big takeaways, as I mentioned earlier, is that Bitcoin's really the tip of the iceberg. It's the first killer app for blockchain, but beneath that, in that chart up there, there's an incredible amount of capabilities and opportunities for blockchain technology. So in that chart, you'll see things like governance, smart property, voting, smart contracts, identity, crowdfunding, which we just heard about, Internet of Things, climate. Anywhere where there's an opportunity or where there's a need to have either a trustless ecosystem, an irrefutable ledger, or markets where counterparties don't coexist in the same place or through some intermediary, there's an opportunity to introduce the blockchain. And also I would say that when we look around what's happened in Bitcoin, I call Bitcoin 1.0, there's been over $700 million of venture capital poured into Bitcoin 1.0, and we've kind of built the first key building blocks, you know, the security, the liquidity, you know, the mining power, transaction processing power, some of the payment processors, and so forth. And I think we've really done a good job in the first few years of that, but now when we look ahead, and investors are thinking about what are we going to do next, and entrepreneurs are thinking about what are we going to do next. What I took away from the discussion there was that we're at this inflection point in the industry. We're moving from what can we do with Bitcoin, oh wow, Bitcoin is neat, you know, it's exciting, to what should we do, right? And so now that we've understood this technology, we've come down the learning curve on what Bitcoin can do, and it has achieved a scale that it has, and we've got all of this technology and venture investment in it. Now it's what should we do with this? So I'm going to focus my remarks on 3 key areas. A few of them have been touched by different speakers, but I'll go with 3 kind of specific examples here today: property rights, Internet of Things, and identity. So property rights is a very interesting topic because, you know, in the U.S. or, you know, in the developed world, we have some pretty robust systems. But if you look at other parts of the world, there is significant corruption, there is significant error, there is just this rampant issue that leads to what Hernando de Soto, who's pictured in the middle, calls dead capital. Hernando de Soto is a proven economist, likely will someday win the Nobel Prize for his work on this. And he has developed this thesis that if you have a robust information framework around property rights, around title, then you can develop the market forces for financing, and you can empower the poor to grow and to flourish. And he sees that there's been more than, he estimates, when you look at certain societies where there's a legal system and an extra legal system, that the poor suffer to the tune of about $10 trillion in dead capital worldwide. And so when he discovered the blockchain, he looked at this from the cultural and historical perspective of Peru, where he's from. And if you look at that big document, that's 26 different paper documents from the time of the Spanish conquest to today, mapping out the property rights of one Peruvian mine that has both U.S. and Chinese interests in that mine. But to develop, along the way, who owns that? What can we do with this? What are the rights? It's all the paper system. Think about how many people are involved, how much bureaucracy is involved, where there could have been mistakes, where there could have been corruption, and so forth. So he sees this as a chain. It's a historical and cultural chain of property rights, and he thinks the next link in that chain can actually be put on the blockchain, which will make it incredibly more efficient, will eliminate any kind of risk and reduce the risk of corruption, and then open up the financial markets. With this as a case study, you can apply that to commercial and residential real estate, and you can apply that to other countries, and you can apply that to things beyond property. So he sees the blockchain as a tool for globalizing and therefore peacemaking through the registration and transfer of property rights. The next example that is really exciting for me as a technology investor and entrepreneur is the Internet of Things. And the Internet of Things has been coming for a while. Everybody's excited about it. The estimates are that there will be 25 billion connected objects or connected devices by 2020, and there will be $7 trillion in terms of an addressable market for IoT solutions. But for a long time, we've kind of been saying, well, what's the use case, right? What are my door locks and light bulbs going to do once they're smart? What are my smart appliances going to do? And nobody really has had an answer for that. Well, there's a guy named Paul Brody who was part of the IBM Adept project, and then now he's at E&Y. And he gave a presentation where it was pretty eye-opening to me that what we're seeing with system-on-chip manufacturing is that the cost of system-on-chip has come down below the cost of a minimally functional chip, soon to become below. And so when you get to that point, actually what that means is now every device that has a chip in it can have, say, a 2 gigahertz processor, or it can be smart enough to run the blockchain, to connect to the blockchain, and therefore kind of bring its own cloud. So if you look at that example on the right, the Apple Lightning adapter, which is the way you charge your iPhone, actually has more compute power than the original iPhone. And that's pretty dramatic. So now there is no need to define the use case. You literally just put this system on a chip on every single device that needs any kind of computational power. And now you've lit up 10 trillion nodes for the blockchain. So the blockchain becomes that ledger, that database, that registration for all these devices. And then with application layers and SaaS and cloud offerings, you can now really create dramatic applications. So Paul Brody calls this, it's not a question of needing a use case anymore, just do it. And that he calls it now the economy of things. I think it's a really exciting inflection point in the way we're going to think about this, and we're going to see a lot of growth, trillions of devices and sensors that can bring their own cloud through the blockchain. And the third example, broadly I'm calling identity, but I want to call out two different examples here. A digital registry for identity, that can be identity of people, that can be identity of digital assets, that can be identity of really anything in some of these open frameworks. So Bill Tai earlier mentioned Lucy Liu attended the summit via teleconference or video conference, talked about her project. She recently published this documentary called Mina, and her goal here is to raise awareness and reduce human trafficking in the sex trade. And the vision here is if you could register these young kids that are born in impoverished countries and register their identity on the blockchain such that later when they're picked up somewhere else, you go back through DNA fingerprinting and other things and say, hey, who is this person? And do they have, are they where they're supposed to be? You could dramatically improve their lives, reduce that trade, and really put a stop to it. So in terms of registering identity of people, that seems like a very powerful application and something that we should do now that we have this worldwide ledger. On the right is a guy named Oliver Luckett, who is CEO of The Audience. He's a very successful digital media executive, really understands the way that social media works and influencers. And he talked about an interesting challenge, which is that an artist might create some original content, and then that content will get syndicated and derivative works will be created and so on and so forth. And that artist, we know that with some of the ways that content's distributed, that artist doesn't really see attribution, monetary attribution for that, but they also don't have any insight into what's happening. So Oliver was suggesting that maybe the blockchain could be a digital registry for the content that's created at origination, and then using algorithms and using other technology downstream, understand the derivative works, understand the trends, understand the analytics behind that, so that artists can better work their craft going forward. And so two different uses of identity, but both influencing the lives and careers of people in different industries. So I'm going to wrap with one slide, which is just how do we get there, because this is kind of a lofty vision with those three examples of what we should do and how the blockchain can impact some of those challenging problems. One is, I think we can learn a lot from our collective Bitcoin experience. I mean, we're at a very interesting point, right? Just look at this week's news. Mark Karpelès arrested in Japan. We're kind of at the end of the Mt. Gox chapter, and hopefully that hangover ends quickly. And in that meantime, over the last year and a half since Mt. Gox collapsed, we've built some really interesting companies, learned a lot as an ecosystem. So I think we can learn what we did with Bitcoin as the killer app and think as how does that apply to everything below the water level in that iceberg. Second is, I think people are finally realizing we have to partner outside the ecosystem. So Wall Street now is taking a serious step into blockchain. They are very passionate about it. And if you look at Lucy Liu and her activist campaign, if you look at Hernando de Soto and the Peruvian government, the US government, and property rights, it's going to require a collaboration outside of Bitcoin. The last presenter said, don't just think like Silicon Valley and beg for forgiveness later necessarily. It's the same concept. I think there's now an opportunity to bridge with other people who have influence and have experience and say, hey, we're bringing blockchain to you and you're bringing what you know well to us, and let's collaborate on that. I also think most of the major applications that are going to have dramatic social change are going to be in the global arena, not just US pain points. We don't need a better way to buy Starbucks coffee right now. We do need to think about some of these bigger issues that can rise the tide for some of the developing nations. And then I would just lastly say, and this is why I'm still very excited about the space, is that it's still super early innings. If you don't own Bitcoin right now, you can still be an early adopter and an early investor. If you haven't built a Bitcoin company or a blockchain company, you can still start one of the greatest companies. I mean, we're in my mental framework, we're in 94, 95 of the internet. So that means Google hasn't been founded, Facebook hasn't been founded, YouTube hasn't been founded. None of the big companies have actually been created yet. And so it's an opportunity for all of us to get involved, invest, invent, and solve some of the biggest challenges in the world. Thank you.